Welcome to This Week in Health IT with our continuing series on coronavirus prep. We've moved from understanding the health IT problem set to really starting to look at solutions. My name is Bill Russell, Healthcare CIO Coach, creator of This Week in Health IT, a set of podcast videos and collaboration events dedicated to developing the next generation of health leaders. Before we get going, I want to give you 3 resources for health IT during this crisis. The first is for CIOs. I'm currently helping my coaching clients by being a sounding board and advisor through this time. If you want to connect with me over the next couple of months to experience what coaching is like at no cost, shoot me a note, bill@healthlyrics.com. For anyone in health IT who finds themselves in uncharted territory, we want to crowdsource solutions with you. And we've put together a team of seasoned professionals, and we have set up 2 ways that you can do that. We now have a Slack channel that is monitored by and supported by our sponsors, and I'm really excited that our sponsors have stepped up here: VMware, Galen Healthcare, Sirius Healthcare, Starbridge Advisors, Pro Talent Advisors, and me, HealthLyrics. Slack channel allows you to ask any questions that you want answered around telehealth, around VDI, whatever questions you have. We have a great team that's sitting there who can respond to that. If you want access to that, and you're with a health system, you need a health system email address. Send a note to slack@thisweekinhealthit.com, and we'll get you set up immediately. Now, some of you aren't used to Slack, but you still want to participate in some way. Our sponsors are also supporting an email channel, support@thisweekinhealthit.com. If you just want to shoot an email over, it will get routed to an expert in the area of the question that you're asking, and one of the people from our sponsors will get back to you and begin a conversation around that. And I really want to thank our sponsors for stepping up to provide these services to our listeners and the industry. Now, on to our guest, and I'm really excited to have John Shelsta with AvoCon. John was in the trenches with me when I was the CIO, and he's one of those guys that whenever I have a Citrix question, this is the person who I pick up the phone and call because we were in the trenches together. We stood up. How many? Oh, by the way, welcome to the show. I'm just jumping into it. Sorry.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks for having me on.
How many VDI workstations did we set up over that time frame? I mean, there was a lot.
About 20,000.
Yeah, it was insane. And we did that over a period of time. We were consolidating the EHR. We were doing app rationalization, and we stood up the Citrix environment. It was as well as badge in, badge out. We had a whole bunch of really fun stuff that we stood up. All right, so we're going to talk Citrix. Are you ready to talk Citrix?
Every day of the week.
Every day of the week. Every day of your life. You really do follow Citrix pretty well and stay up to. Is Citrix doing anything special during this time for healthcare to cope with this and to adjust with it?
So interesting times. Yes, they for the last 2 weeks they've been pushing a directive to go to Citrix Cloud if you were a previous Citrix customer, or even if you weren't. What they're doing is they're offering special terms for a short term. And they're offering the ability to move your workloads to Citrix Cloud with using, if you don't have app and desktop workloads already or in the cloud somewhere, they're looking at pushing them to their technology called remote PC.
I mean, is that going to be a heavy lift for? Well, actually, I'm getting into the technical. So they're offering some special deals around that. What do the special deals look like?
So they're deep discounts that's around a certain time frame, and it's completely negotiable. And what they're doing is they're offering help to customers that need help getting their workforce remote. So a lot of places were caught short with having the capacity to bring like 80 or 90% of their workload to be able to work remote from home. And so what they're doing is they're kind of stepping in and saying, hey, this is a special situation. During this situation, we will help you get set up in Citrix Cloud. Even if the customer was already on-prem, they're offering this in Citrix Cloud to be able to get your company set up and get your people working remote.
Wow. And so what's the lift here? So we had clinical workstations. Nothing really would change with that, except for some clinicians are going home. So we have to take that workload, those images and those applications that we virtualized and move them out into this cloud environment. Is that a heavy lift?
It depends on the customer. Some of the customers have mature cloud environments, and so it's an easy shift over to Azure or Google or AWS, and those workloads are being spun up on demand wherever needed. And then the thing about it is a lot of the clinicians that aren't working from home still go into the hospital, the clinic. What they're looking at is helping like HR and accounting and all those other workloads that they haven't accounted for, the hospital organization hasn't accounted for, with being able to enable them to work from home.
Yeah, I'm thinking about this. We did the clinical setting pretty extensively. The other setting, we didn't have all the applications set up because there was never a need for all those applications to really be set up. Yeah. I mean, is that a heavy lift? I would assume.
Actually with the remote PC, because typically if you're in a revenue operations center, somebody that's collecting money, all the application stack is on their PC at work. So with the Citrix technology of remote PC, we just put the VDA, the virtual delivery agent, on that PC, and then they have the exact same ability to go to the landing page where they'd get any Citrix application and run their desktop remotely.
Oh,
so it's easy.
This is going to show how old I am. So this is sort of like the old Timbuktu application we used to have, where you're essentially you're working from your desktop.
Yep, and it's all delivered through the Citrix ICA channel. You have the ability to span it across multiple desktops. You have the ability to plug in peripherals that you might need at the office, and you've taken them home. So like the old PC Anywhere days, yeah.
Yeah, PC Anywhere, yeah, Timbuktu, PC Anywhere. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. So is this more lightweight though? I mean, you talked about the ICA protocol and those kind of things. I assume that Citrix has a way to do that without just sucking up bandwidth.
Yeah, so it follows the same protocol stack as any virtual desktop. You deliver the desktop stream through the ICA channel, and it's really tiny, 128, 256K, depending on what that employee's role is, really small.
Wow. It's interesting. So as a lot of this scaling up has been around the business applications, which, so there's a lot of different ways they could do that. If they had so give me the different ways they could do that. VDA, which is the virtual desktop architecture. Is that what you just said? Virtual
delivery agent.
Yeah, Citrix is great. Citrix is great for acronyms, by the way.
Yeah.
Virtual delivery agent. So that's one way. What's other ways that people are doing it?
So depending again on how mature the environment is, a lot of customers were lucky and they had existing capacity in their app and desktop workload environment. So on-prem servers, the traditional way, server, storage, network, and we just turned up capacity there, giving them the ability to do specific applications for users that are not in the clinical environment. So HR, accounting, basically any application that way, and then they deliver it through their existing on-prem workload. But a lot of customers already had their foot in the door with Azure or AWS, mostly, some Google, and we ended up just taking their template of their current delivery and then making it available in that cloud workload. Citrix actually has a cool feature with AWS called Scale, where you can bring up DR environments up and down as needed. So you're not paying for the cloud delivery workload if you're not needing it. It's not sitting there online consuming, processing and dollars.
So it's interesting because I want to talk futures here a little bit. Does this accelerate a move to the cloud in the future? Because all of a sudden people had to scale all this stuff up, and we had extenuating circumstances. Before, I mean, you were there when we were trying to move to the cloud, and we had all sorts of pushback. Oh, security in the cloud, and you name it. And to be honest, we were doing it in 2011, so it was, a lot of, we didn't have a choice of going to AWS and going to all the different stacks that were out there.
Correct. Yeah.
So we had to do some interesting things, but will this moving forward? Because I believe we're going to see televisits, I think, are going to take hold as a result of this. I think we're going to see change behaviors. Will remote work take a hold I'm not asking you that question because we can't really predict that. Will remote work take hold? Right. But I've just virtualized for, let's tenfold what it was yesterday, and it's now out in the cloud and it's working. IT organizations have gotten the experience of moving it out there, the tools that are available, and quite frankly, today, in today's day and age, how easy it is. Do you think that some health IT organizations are going to sit back and go, wow, I really thought this was going to be harder than this?
Yeah, I think they're going to, if they hadn't already, if they had a small cloud presence, they're going to realize how easy and scalable and movable and resilient that it is, and they'll probably never pull back from it now.
So what are some of the mistakes that you think people are going to make as they try to scale this up? Because I'm sure somebody's listening to this going, it wasn't easy, ours broke. So what are some mistakes that people might make?
So mistakes is turning up too fast. Obviously, in a situation where, let's use AWS, for example, there is a lot of painstaking effort that goes into image continuity. So if you're not starting from square one and trying to create a brand new vanilla image, and you want to use your existing image, you have to make sure that that converts over correctly and that you have a mature enough cloud environment to be able to scale that on like a moment's notice, a flip of a switch. So taking your current image and making sure that it works in Amazon is the hard part of all of this. Issues with connectivity to be able to get authentication. A lot of hospital systems use Okta now, so that you need to make sure that communication flow and transit is all there working before you even start turning this on. We've had a bunch of customers, even small ones, that have just decided to put up 1,000 desktops in the cloud just to get people available.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm just laughing because I remember that, like, getting the desktop right. We took a long time to get that desktop right, and we had a test and dev environment. We implemented best practices to move the stuff along. But once we got that right, we thought, oh, we're good. We're going to scale, and then we started scaling and realized, oh gosh, we got latency, we got bandwidth, because we were doing it from Texas to Vegas and other things. And so we learned a whole bunch of stuff. People just had to do that over the course of 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. But we essentially took, 9 months of really.
It's amazing when everybody's focused on it, how fast that stuff comes together. So
yeah.
That's what we've seen in the last 2 weeks, is if you have every IT team in your corporation looking at it, it all gets done really fast. I'm not saying it's perfect, but it is doable, and it has come together.
That's an interesting point. Focus is an amazing catalyst within health IT, because a lot of that time was, all right, let's go talk to the security team, make sure they're okay. Let's go talk to the legal team, make sure the contracts are right. And I've heard people saying, oh, we got a contract done in an afternoon. We had our security team vet it within a couple of hours. I was like, those, and people just don't appreciate it in health IT. Those two things I just said are usually about 2.5, 3 months.
Yep, exactly.
It's unbelievable. Well, and the other thing is, I'm thinking of the challenge we had taking that much time, but we had the luxury of time, and you guys kept pushing back on me that my timelines were too short, and now everybody just did it in a couple of weeks. But I'm just picturing people going to 1,000 and this thing breaking. I mean, when it breaks, though, it breaks for everybody if you do it wrong.
Right. Well, the nice thing about Citrix Cloud is you have the they call them resource zones, and you can turn them on and off as needed, so that if you want to spin up AWS and try it out, you add it to your delivery groups, you know, not trying to get technical, but you add resource and the resource is available. And if it's broken, you just turn it off so that you can figure out what the problem is with it. And that's kind of been the trial and error, every transition, every night for the last 2 weeks of, hey, is it available? You know, what routes are taking? You know, how come it's so much slower? Do we have domain controllers in the cloud that can authenticate us quickly? How do we get communication open to our multi-factor, whatever it is, whether it's Azure AD or Okta or something else? That's the things that happen after hours. We get that set up and we turn it on and figure out what's broken, get a couple hundred users or try to get a few hundred users in there to try to test it. And once we see that communication stream, the transit that's broken, we end up fixing it on the spot or stopping the change.
Yeah. So how much of this is common across different VDI environments?
It's almost the same, just the dependencies names change.
You don't want to get in trouble with anyone for saying it's almost the same, but they really have started to converge. I mean, if you look at Citrix VDI and you look at VMware's VDI and you look at, I mean, they're mature stacks now.
Yep. And they're all available in the cloud, so that all you really need to do is have your image ready and sign a contract, and they start, you have the ability to get in and start building.
Is there anything people need to, this is the age old question, which is licensing, right? You used to get tired of me talking about licensing, but are people going to be surprised? Because after this, you know, after they get to a certain point in this, then we're going to go back to normal. Then people are going to start to see licensing. Is there anything they should be considering? Well, I mean, not now. You want to get through the crisis, but as they're looking at it.
So for the crisis period, Citrix is offering, like, you know, like we said, the discounts, and for a different period. Like when you sign up with Citrix Cloud, it's usually for a 3-year or a 5-year term. They're offering like 12-month, 13-month. I haven't seen any shorter than that right now, but they're offering that small term, and then that term is not renewable. So when, you know, a year from now, when hopefully this is all blown over, you have to renegotiate your deal with them. So licensing is a big factor, but they're definitely coming up with some creative ideas to get people on board. So
yeah, get them on board, get them used to the technology, but also offering a service to healthcare by helping them to ramp up, which otherwise they wouldn't normally have been able to do. Are people doing this with mostly on-prem, or are you finding a lot of it leaning over?
A lot of it. So before, like if this last 2 weeks wouldn't have happened, I would have said the majority of the Citrix customers across the United States are still on-prem. But now, because of this crisis, everybody's turning towards the cloud because the expertise doesn't need to be there to start up your cloud. The cloud is already pre-configured. You really need to come to the table with a URL and an entry point into your network, and you could be up and running. You know, granted that the image is the biggest thing that's the problem, but with this remote PC solution, you could be up and running in probably 2 to 3 days.
Yeah, and
that's your whole. Yeah, that's your whole organization.
Yeah, and that's what we really needed in this situation. Well, you know, my famous last question: what am I not asking that I should be asking about?
Well, I mean, you want to keep it all healthcare, but a lot of the customers that we've been turning up have phone systems that don't transition to home workers. That's going to be another big point for, you know, maintaining the ability for users to be productive at home, is to look at the whole stack that what they need. Besides the virtual desktop, it's communications. We've seen a lot of customers that have VoIP related communications. They transition super easy. almost like a blink of an eye. With other customers that have antiquated phone systems and communication devices, they are all stuck. People can work from home off of VDI and remote PC, but they also don't have the ability to just pick up their phone and dial extension 10 and get their boss or whoever else they need to communicate with. So a lot of this, the new technology like Zoom and Ring Central and other companies that integrate the whole communication stack together, like phone, meetings, instant messenger, are ahead of the game right now.
It's interesting you bring up phones. I can't think of anything that I left undone more than the phone system at St. Joe's. I mean, we had a couple phone systems. We were buying parts on eBay just to keep them running. And I don't say that with pride. I say that sort of as a, every year we'd come to the budget cycle and you have to make choices. And it's like, the thing's running. And to tear a phone system out of a health system, I don't think people realize, especially if it's been there for 20 years, there's so much logic built into it. And there's so much, the person who set it up retired 15 years ago. And, and no one works on some of this stuff. And there's all sorts of routes in there. So you think, oh, this is easy. We'll just pull this out and drop in, a voice over IP solution and away we go. But then you also have to think about the region. You have to think about disaster recovery. You have to think about all those things. And every time I got a quote from a certain vendor on this, the numbers were so high that I'm like, the situation almost took care of itself. I'm waiting for that cloud vendor who comes in and goes, yeah, we'll completely replace your on-prem. It looks like this, VoIP, and away you go. But the vendor I'm talking about, which will remain nameless, people can figure out who it is. I mean, they were trying to make money on the phones. They were making money on the software, on everything. It was so hard for me to make that decision to pull all that stuff out.
It's interesting because a bunch of our customers that were smaller, like small clinics, there has been a few VoIP companies that have come to the table and said the first 2 months are free. We'll port all your numbers. We'll handle all the communication traffic. We'll pre-order numbers so that we get you up and running right away, that we don't have to wait for the term to port, but not on the scale of like St. Joe's. We're talking a couple hundred, maybe 500.
Yeah. It's interesting. I should probably have somebody on who deals with those larger phone systems and just have a conversation. I think that would be interesting. John, thanks for taking the time. It looks like you haven't shaved, so it looks like you've been holed up there for a while.
Yes, I'm sheltering at home.
Sheltering at home, and probably doing just as much work as you normally would do, because you can do it all from your keyboard anyway.
Yeah, I think we're averaging about 14 hours a day for the last 2 weeks. Yeah, all the decisions get made during the day, and then all the changes happen after 6 p.m. So
yeah, absolutely, and I appreciate it. AvoCon, how can they reach you if they wanted to get a hold of you?
Oh, website's www.avocon.com. We do all sorts of VDI solutions, not just Citrix, and happy to help.
Yeah, you do VMware as well, and that's one of our sponsors. So I probably should have mentioned that in the beginning. I mentioned it at the end. Hopefully I won't get in trouble. No, our vendors are great. They know that we're just highlighting, certain things to help the industry. So they're very appreciative. John, thanks for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Bill.
That's all for this week. Special thanks to our sponsors, VMware, Starbridge Advisors, Galen Healthcare, Health Lyrics, and ProTalent Advisors for choosing to invest in developing the next generation of health leaders. This show is a production of This Week in Health IT. For more great content, you can check out our website, thisweekhealth.com, or the YouTube channel. If you want to support the show, best way to do that, share it with a peer. However you do that, send them an email, send them a whatever, DM, whatever you do, that's what you should do. We'll be back again with more shows as this progresses. We'll try to drop one a day until we flatten the curve. Thanks for listening. That's all for now.